Journey's 15th album, Freedom, has finally been released. What an album it is. Let's get into a review for Freedom. Welcome back to Pixel Positive Music, where we just have fun talking about music that we love. If you haven't already, hit the subscribe button below so you don't miss out on any of the awesome content that I've got planned. And make sure you also go check some of the content I've already put out, including a 14-part series covering every previous Journey album, as well as individual reviews for every single from Freedom. So, let's get into it. Honestly, I didn't really know what to expect from Freedom when it was first announced. Journey has not put out an album in 11 years. And I think a lot of us thought that during most of that time, they were done. They weren't going to make any more albums. Eclipse was not successful at all. It was a big departure for the band in terms of style, and it didn't really resonate. Ooh, double pun, departure and resonate. It didn't really resonate with the fans, I don't think. So it seemed like they were done. After some lineup changes in 2020, Ross Valerie and Steve Smith were fired from the band due to some circumstances I'm not really going to get into. And then COVID, the band added a couple members, Randy Jackson, who previously played on Raised on Radio, and Narada Michael-Walden, who is a very prolific drummer who has worked with Neal in the past, along with many other musicians. And while Randy Jackson and Narada Michael-Walden are not in the band currently anymore, both had to leave due to health circumstances, they're all over this album. So, Freedom is a very interesting album from Journey. It's very long. This album clocks in at like 73 minutes, which is very long. I think it's a bit too long, but the lineup on this album, we have Arnel Pineda on vocals, of course, Neal Schon on guitars, Jonathan Cain on keys, Randy Jackson on bass, Narada Michael-Walden on drums, and then we also have an appearance from Dean Castronovo, who does vocals on one track, and I'm assuming that he does not do drums on any of the tracks because he came in very late to the fold here, but I'll have to look at the actual album credits to determine that. So, I'm going to run through just a kind of an overview of each track, and then kind of conclude this with some thoughts. Now, this is an initial review. I just finished listening to the album. It just came out. I may do another video revisiting it in a few weeks after it's had some time to simmer, but I think it's important to get the raw, first impressions out there. So let's get into this. First track is Together We Run. I think it's a pretty strong album opener. It's not quite as strong as previous album openers. As I noted in my History of Journeys series, Journey has almost always opened their albums with a very strong killer track. I mean, Don't Stop Believin', Separate Ways, Girl Can't Help It, Never Walk Away, Higher Place, Message of Love. I mean, they always open with a killer track. Almost always. Together We Run is a good track. It's not a bad track. It starts off with a bit of somber piano. It starts off a bit mid-tempo, softer, quieter. It has a nice modern feel to it, though, overall. It's got some orchestral moments and a catchy chorus. And, the production issues really start here. This album is just full of production problems. The mixing on this album is atrocious. I've made that clear in my reviews of the other tracks, and it just kind of runs rampant through the whole album, but it really hits. It starts here on the first track. The chorus has some odd effects going on, especially in the backing vocals. They're kind of hard to understand. I think the music sounds really good here. And it really picks up as the song goes on. It kind of picks up and ends up being a bit bombastic. It doesn't sound like Message of Love, but it kind of reminds me of that. It starts off a bit calmer, and then it kind of picks up into a nice instrumentation from the band in the end. So it's a good track. Second track is Don't Give Up on Us, which I covered extensively on one of my other videos, so definitely check that out. But Don't Give Up on Us opens with a Separate Ways type synth, but then the song itself, for me, it's like a mix of Separate Ways and Where Did I Lose Your Love from Revelation. It's a good track. It's a bit slow. I was very positive on this track when I first listened to it, and I still really enjoy the track. The more I've listened to it, the more I've kind of noticed that it is kind of a slow song. It needs to be just a little quicker, and the opening synth kind of is out of place. But still, Don't Give Up on Us is a great, like, mid-tempo rocking track that feels pretty close to older Journey. And the guitar solo is good. It's just a bit long, but the drumming, especially on this one, is very good, I think. Our third track is Still Believe in Love. It's just another slower track. I think this is like a slow track with some groove. You have a good bass going on this one. The opening of the track, it's synthesizers, and in my notes I called it mystical. It has a nice like mystical opening, and then we get some great guitar work from Neal. Nice slow melodic, good synths and bass throughout the whole song. I think this is one of the tracks where Randy Jackson's bass playing really shines. I could see this song being great live as a nice slow moment with like the shining lights, maybe even like a disco ball type effect. I mean, it really feels like it reminds me of Cinder My Love. It doesn't really sound like it. It's just kind of the vibe I get from it. It just kind of reminds me of that. You start out with some more like normal rock tracks, and then you kind of slow things down a bit. It works pretty well. Then we immediately transition to the second single from the album, You Got the Best of Me, which is, I really enjoyed that song a lot when I first heard it. In fact, it was the catalyst for me making this YouTube channel. It was my very first video. So go check it out. I think my recording has improved a bit since then, but I think the content's still good. So definitely go check out the video for You Got the Best of Me. But this song works really well in the track listing after the slow track we had before. This is a quicker, more energetic, modern-sounding Journey song. It would fit really well on Revelation. Kind of reminds me of Change for the Better. It also reminds me a bit of Higher Place. So it's a good track. It's fun. Then we transition to Live to Love Again. This is a decent song. I don't know. This song, I really liked it at first, but as the song went on, I actually ended up liking it less when it was over. It starts off with some nice orchestral components and piano. This one feels like it would fit well on Trial by Fire. The opening piano riff actually reminded me a lot of When You Love a Woman. So it also would fit well, I think, on Arrival, which was a more like ballad-heavy, like piano-based. A lot of those tracks had a lot of piano. When I first heard this song, I thought, this has got to be a Jonathan Cain track here. Just the feel of it, and it is. It was actually solely written by Jonathan Cain. So it's just a slow piano-based track. I think it's fairly forgettable. It's not a bad track. It's just very long. And the build-up at the end of the track is really good. It kind of builds up to a really nice conclusion, but the production ruins it. When it's quieter and softer, the production is pretty good, but when you add guitars and things at the very end, it really kills the momentum because the sound is so muddy. So then we transition to the first single, The Way We Used to Be, which I just recently put out a video of this one, and I really did not like this track the first time I heard it. It took me a while to really get used to this one. I do enjoy it now, and it fits well in the album right here, I think. This is like a bluesier, funkier, slower track. Really good guitar playing, pretty good vocals from Arnel on this one. Opens with a bit of a keyboard riff again, but I think, yeah, The Way We Used to Be, I was not super high on it when it first came out, but I do definitely like it a lot more. I'm sure many of you have had a lot of time to really digest this track, so you're probably used to it by now. Then we have Come Away With Me. It starts off with some pretty heavy guitar playing from Neal. This is a straightforward rock track, thumping drums, classic Neal Schon riffs. Arnel sounds rougher and more abrasive, which is definitely intentional. It works well. And Arnel sounds really good here, but this is another track that for me probably did not need to be on this album. It feels like a Neal Schon solo track that was sung by Arnel. It's fairly simple song structure, and the production issues are, again, pretty bad on the chorus. Then we transition to what I think is probably one of the best tracks of the album and probably the most interesting track. It's a song called Afterglow. It is sung by Dean Castronovo. He is, again, the drummer of Journey. He was in the band from 1998 all the way to 2015. He left the band due to some legal troubles, and he was actually brought back in recently. And, if you've watched the other videos or you know about Dean, he's a great singer. He's a drummer, but he's a very good singer, and his vocals are very good here. It's a very nice change to Arnel. Both Arnel and Dean are reminiscent of Steve Perry in their singing styles, I think, but Dean has a bit of a huskier, vibe to it. His voice is a bit more world-weary, I think. This is a very good song. It starts off pretty slow. It's got drumming that is very reminiscent of Cinder My Love, a lot of taps. The song, unfortunately, suffers from bad production. I think probably worse than any of the other songs on this album. Dean has such a soulful, passionate vocal here. It's a very slow, beautiful ballad, and then it picks up at the end, and it really picks up. The build-up is great. The lyrics are good. It's very catchy. The band's backing vocals are decent. Everything is just so muddy here. The instruments are buried when the song picks up, and then once the guitar solos kick in, the instruments are featured heavily, but then Dean's vocals are completely buried. And this is a song I want to hear live really badly because I really liked it a lot. I think it's a phenomenal track. It just really, the mixing here is really bad. I think it's probably the worst on this track, which is a shame, but still a good song, very good song, still definitely worth listening to. Then we move on to the third single, Let It Rain. This is a bluesier track that is completely different than anything the band did. You've got a bluesy synth riff. You have lots of heavy guitar playing from Neal. Very different sounding vocals from Arnel. I went into a lot more detail on my individual review for Let It Rain, so check it out over there. And then we transition to Holdin' On, which is another rock-based track. Starts off with another killer rock riff from Neal. Has a very hard edge compared to a lot of these tracks. Arnel sounds a lot like Steve Perry here. The Neal solo at the end is very good. He plays just phenomenally, and then Jonathan King comes out of nowhere with an amazing synthesizer solo. We don't get very many of those from Journey, so it kind of reminded me of La Raza del Sol, which is a very fun live track from the band. In that vein, with the different solos going on here. I fully expect the band to play this one live. It'll be very fun seeing Jonathan and Neal doing solos. Because like I said, Jonathan doesn't do a lot of synth solos in Journey's music. It's more proggy for a keyboard player to do solos like that. So this is a very fun track that, again, suffers from production issues. Then we have All Day, All Night. This is a very interesting song. This song starts off with an awesome, funky bass riff. This is Randy Jackson. It's really good sounding drums. This song really shows off that rhythm section of Randy Jackson and Narada Michael-Walden. It's got a great groove. This is a groovy, funky track. Arnel's lyrics complement that sound, the way he sings. It's very fun. I think this is one of the funnest tracks on the album, and it really is unfortunate that Narada and Randy had to leave the band because this track right here proves just how good they are. The guitar work from Neal is good, and for me, maybe it's because I just ran through every single Journey album within the last month or so. This really feels like something we would have gotten from the early days of Journey. The funkiness, the grooviness. It even has a bass solo, which is something I don't think we've ever gotten from Journey. And then Arnel sounds very much like Steve Perry again on this one. I think this would have fit very well on Evolution. It really reminds me of Love and Touch and Squeezin'. Obviously, it doesn't sound quite like that, but it's similar. It kind of calls back to that, in my opinion, at least. So this is a really fun track. Very nice twist for the album, I think. And then we have what might be my favorite track. I haven't really decided yet. Don't Go it starts immediately with a don't go vocal refrain that carries on throughout the song, and very frenetic synths going on in the background. This sounds so much like an 80s rock track, just a standard 80s rock track with the awesome backing synths, just a standard like guitar riff, nothing crazy here. Arnel's vocals, I mean, this sounds very much like classic Journey from the 1980s. It's very fun. It's a very great track. I was not expecting this one, so this one works very, very well. Definitely a very fun track, one of my favorites. And then we have the most recent single, United We Stand, which I covered in great detail on one of my previous videos, so you'll have to go check that out, where I did a live listen to this track. It's a very good song. It's one of the better songs from the album. It has a very uplifting message. It was released on July 4th, which absolutely makes sense for this song. I mean, United We Stand is a very good track. And then we have Life Rolls On, which is starts off a bit slower at first, opens with some piano, has some good keys from Kane, good vocals from Arnel. It's not a very exciting track in the beginning. The guitars jump in, the drums jump in about 2 minutes in, and it speeds up quite a bit. But this is it's an okay track. The song is just way too long. And then we have the final track, Beautiful As You Are. And this song really threw me off. It starts off very slow. It's very acoustic. It sounds like it would fit very well on Trial by Fire. I'm thinking, okay, this is going to be just a very gentle, slower album closer, tender vocals, and then it really picks up halfway through, like really big, and you end up with piano and guitar riffs that sound very similar to Don't Stop Believin', and this tempo picks up, and it ends up being a very fun album closer. So that's Freedom. It's a lot of songs, it's a lot of music. It's a very good album. I'm very impressed by this album, but I'm also very frustrated by this album, unfortunately. The mix is so bad. I mean, the mix is the biggest thing, and probably one of my only problems with this album is the mix. It is very bad. It's the worst they've ever been as far as mixing is concerned, in my opinion. I think like Arrival had some bad mixing issues as well, but it's nothing compared to this. And it's a bit concerning because Neal has been very positive about the mix. He's been hyping it up, the album, of course, which he should, but he's also been talking specifically about how good the mix is, and it's not. It's like really not. I just don't really get how he could think it's good. It's a shame. The choruses are muddy on a lot of these songs. Sometimes there's like a weird reverb effect going on with some of the chorus vocals. The guitars can get very muddy at times, even on guitar solos. And some instruments are just completely buried, and the backing vocals are very bad on some of these tracks. Like the actual lyrics are good, and the singing is good, but the mixing, it sounds so muddy. And it's inconsistent. It's really good on some songs. I think The Way We Used to Be has good mix. All Day All Night's pretty good. But then you have like Afterglow, which is a wonderful track, one of my favorites from this album, and the mix is just horrendous and absolutely kills the momentum of the song. So it really holds the album back in a lot of ways, I think, which is really, really unfortunate. But with that being said, I think overall Freedom is a very good album. It leaves a very strong first impression. We get a lot of wonderful variety here. Everyone is performing very well. The music is interesting. Neal is shredding. Kane's keys are just absolutely on point. Randy and Narada make an absolutely killer and groovy rhythm section. Arnel is just knocking it out of the park. I mean, Neal called him a vocal chameleon recently, and because he can sing so many styles, and he proves it on this album. Absolutely. He's using so many different styles and different sounds. He sounds like bluesier on like songs like "Let It Rain." He's very tender on the ballads. He's got an abrasive edge on some of these rock tracks. I mean, Arnel just absolutely kills it, and it's amazing. I mean, for a band that is pushing nearly 50 years of existence, this is an incredible effort. Many bands cannot put out music like this late in their career. It at this point, I can't really decide. It might be my favorite post Steve Perry album. I think it probably is. That was kind of held by Revelation, but I think this album is better and more interesting. I'll need time to really decide on that because it is just new and exciting right now because it's a new Journey album, first in 11 years. But I think overall, this is a very, very compelling and good album. And either way, I'm just thankful that these guys are still making music. I mean, we are very lucky as Journey fans to have gotten so much music. Even after someone like Steve Perry left the band just kept delivering. They kept trying, and sometimes it worked, sometimes it didn't, but we should be very thankful that we even got new music. Even if you aren't super high on this album, I'm just glad that these guys are still putting something out. I mean, it's great. I hope we don't have to wait, super long for another one. I hope this isn't the last Journey album. But if it is, I think this was a very good note to end a very epic career on. I mean, Freedom is a good album. It's very, very good. I'll have to listen to it many more times to really land on a final score for it, but it's very good. I'm satisfied with this album. So, those are my thoughts on Freedom. Let me know what you guys think in the comments. I want to know what everyone thinks about Freedom. You guys have been really interactive in the comments. I'm very happy about that. You guys have been doing, you guys have been watching all the videos. The videos are doing great. I'm very happy about that. Absolutely subscribe to the channel. I've got some more bonus Journey content coming up. I'm going to do some stuff on the solo work, some album artwork. I think once Freedom has simmered for about a month, I'm going to do a total ranking of every Journey album. And then I'm also going to start covering some other bands. So definitely hit that subscribe button so you don't miss out. Definitely go check out the History of Journey series, which covers every single Journey album, and then the Freedom playlist, which has single reviews for the 5 singles that we got. So until next time, guys.